Welcome back, guys, and I just want to start off by settling a dispute between Nathan and I. So, do you want to tell us like what happened?
All right, so basically what happened was, since Eric takes me to school every morning, right, and we both have tennis, so I put my tennis bag in his car, and he had an away game, so he had to leave during lunchtime, and I told him, because we went to Chinese room together to eat, I told him 10 times, hey, don't forget to drop off my bag, so I could pick it up later. And then Eric was trolling me, saying, no, I'm not going to get it. And I knew he would forget anyways. And then later, he goes, and then I go to his car, I open the handle, and it's locked. And I text Eric, and Eric's like, I left it unlocked. Psych, it's not unlocked.
Okay, this is my side of the story. I forgot to take it out. But I remember last minute on the bus that I needed to take out his bag, right? So I left the bus to unlock my car, and it was unlocked. But somehow, when he went to the car, it was locked.
Does your car automatically lock?
But I didn't know that.
Oh, so it did automatically lock.
So it did automatically lock.
So you did
supposedly it locked, but I'm pretty sure I unlocked it.
Yeah, but it was locked. So I had to ask my coach to bring a new bag.
Yeah, and then he was like yelling at me.
Wait, was the bag had your racket?
It had my jersey, it had my pants, it had my racket, it had my shoes. So I had to play on my friends' like actual shoes. I couldn't play in tennis shoes.
Yeah.
I had to ask for a new racket that was really uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and I had to wear a new jersey that smelled. I won 6 of 6.
She won anyways.
So why are you complaining?
Yeah.
No, but still,
No, I'm
in
just
that moment, I was very stressed out in that moment.
No, you're justified, I think.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Thank you.
Valid.
But I think you should forgive him because he gives you rides and.
Yeah, like I was actually never mad at him, but only at that moment I was mad at him.
At that moment.
Yeah, in that moment.
No, he was mad, but I felt really bad, but like I was just like I didn't really know what to think.
Yeah.
You know, because like I could have done more, but I didn't.
But
Like-
you did leave it unlocked.
Yeah, but that's like the bare effort. You know, like I
Right.
could have done something better, but I didn't.
Maybe you should have just given him the key.
Oh.
There's all lessons for next time.
Yeah,
Next
that's
time
true.
we're
That's
gonna
true.
do.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like,
It won't happen again.
yeah, it
Right.
won't happen again because he won't be putting it at the car anymore.
Oh,
Ah.
that's why you gotta be careful.
He'll be putting it outside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unless it rains.
Yeah, it's been what, like 2 or 3 weeks since we last talked. So how you guys doing with
3 weeks.
the Bible study, the Bible reading plan?
Mm.
Yeah, how you guys doing?
Yeah, Nathan, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm cooked. I've been forgetting to read the Bible once again. But it's okay
Ooh.
because Eric gave me a quick recap on the call right here, so I should be fine.
Okay, so he had a question, or we were talking about this. It was like,
Yeah.
do you think different Bible chapters or Bible books have different wisdoms, or do you think certain books teaches you more things than other books?
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
So do you think? Okay,
But Nathan said something controversial, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
What did he say?
What did you say?
Alright, so basically I said that Romans was like more about lessons, like really more upfront, rather than like things. It's like a story, and then we have to find our lessons ourselves. And then Eric said something else.
Or he was basically.
How did he say it normally? Because this sounds like a refined version. This sounds like a packaged version. Yeah,
He had time to
had to
started
think
like
about it.
He basically said, "I don't want to learn about history. Instead, I want to like read about like actual like lessons." That's what he said.
Hey, that sounds a little bit different than what you
Nah,
just said.
I didn't say. I might have said it like that, but I didn't mean it like that.
Oh.
I meant that.
Yeah. But I feel like that's like a very like controversial topic. Like even like with church, like people like tend to like only like read things that speak to them. You know, like people always skip like certain chapters or it's like listing all the names. So like I wanted to ask you guys like, what do you guys think about like skipping those chapters? You know, like,
Kenzo, what do you think? Especially about history, right?
yeah, like history.
I think. I mean, even in like secular contexts, you learn so much from history. Right?
Yeah.
You learn like what not to do. So like when you look at like American history or European history, there's so many lessons to be learned that all of these like politicians took to make their country better,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so not only is it like a historical lesson in terms of like knowledge, like
Mhm.
just knowing what happened, it's also like there's lessons to be learned of like, oh, the Israelites did this, King Solomon did this,
Mhm.
so therefore we shouldn't do this.
Yeah. So
So you're saying stories are important.
Stories are important.
Yeah.
then like how would you decipher, like how do you, when you read the Bible, how do you decipher what lessons to take away from like reading the history instead of just like straight up wisdom, you know?
I think like the context matters a lot with,
Mhm.
especially like, I think you pointed out Romans earlier, right?
Yep.
This is the book you were reading. Romans is like one of Paul's letters that
Yeah.
he writes to the Romans, surprise. And then like,
Oh, I didn't know that. I actually didn't know that.
well, he writes it to the Romans,
Yeah.
right? And in that, he's essentially telling them like, the reason all the wisdom is so up front is because
Mhm.
each like church had this like certain thing that they were basically struggling with that
Yeah.
Paul wrote these letters for to tell them what to do. right?
Yeah.
And so I like to think of it as like you read certain books of
Mhm.
Paul's letters for certain things.
Yeah.
That's
Whereas
cool,
whereas like with like the book that we read, First Kings, this
Yeah.
week, I think it's you have to decipher it because it's a story, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like Paul's letter is almost like a direct command, right? It's like don't do this, do this.
Mhm.
So I think when it comes to like what I take from like the Old Testament books,
Yeah.
it's a lot of like general stuff. I think with Paul's letters, and like if you look at like Acts,
Mhm.
Romans, everything else.
I
after
like
that.
what Hyunsu's saying. I feel like you're saying that like there's more specific topics that are presented in the New Testament, epistles especially.
like a theme.
Yeah, themes and
Yeah.
like because the churches were going through very specific things, it relates to very specific things in our church today. I think, for example, like when we read the book of Titus, it's like, what is
Mhm.
that about? Paul is writing to a young pastor that he mentored named Titus, and the book is mainly about pastorship. So if you're not a pastor, like it might not really impact you right now.
Mhm.
But also at the same time, like if you have a pastor you are under, right? Like you guys are under me, then
Mhm.
it's good to read that and be like, oh, Pastor Q looks like this or he doesn't look like this. And I think that kind of helps us too. But one thing I do want to say is the Bible is told in, I forget the exact percentage, but like
Mhm.
70 or like some 70 something percent like that of the Bible, someone fact check me, 70% of the Bible is written in stories.
Yes.
So the book that God wrote is written in stories. And obviously like we have concluded that in the stories there is wisdom and lessons to be derived from. So the
Mhm.
question is, why did God write most of the book that we are given from
Mhm.
him in stories? And I think the general answer that you can remember why God wrote in stories is it's much easier to remember it in stories. Everything is just easier to remember. Like when you think of like, man, like, should I steal this? And then you think of like, oh, like this guy named, I don't know if you remember, but this guy named Achan stole this in the book
Mhm.
of Joshua. So we shouldn't steal. It's much easier to remember a story that you remember than to like think of, hey, what's 1 Corinthians 14:10 again? And then you're
Yeah.
like, yeah. But to finalize, I think even the epistles that Hyunsu was talking about, because they're about churches that are going through specific things,
Mhm.
and then Paul is writing to those churches, that's a story.
Mhm.
So you
Ooh.
can also remember the epistles by the story. So ultimately, most of it is stories. So stories might be more important. Or not. I don't know.
For me, I kind of thought of it differently. It's more so like God are telling us these stories as like testimonies that really like relate to you. You know, like for example, when I was reading First Kings, and when Elijah like came down with the fire and everything from God, he ran away like the next chapter, right? And the reason he was running away was that he wanted to go to God's mountain and find out what he was really chasing, right? And to me, that was like kind of telling me, oh, like sometimes like you glorify God, but then the next day you tend to like question like his existence or like question your faith. And so like in that way, I feel like those stories really stand out to me because like it's like showing me proof that other people have lived it and actually overcame it, so that I can like build better with my faith, you know.
So you're saying that in that story right there, there's a very high moment of faith and like spirituality and like maybe our time at church, and then there immediately like surprisingly like the day after comes that like super super low.
Yeah.
So what is that like? Do you guys have like an experience of that where like it was really high one day and then low one day?
Ooh. I feel like a common experience like a retreat.
Oh, retreat.
Yeah.
Retreat's very high.
Yeah, and then after.
What happens when you guys come back from retreat? For me, my spirit is actually very the same. Even at retreat, I feel like it's the same for me. But after retreat, I'm just like so physically exhausted that I'm mentally drained, that I think that it plays into my effort, and for me, it's more like that. But what does it look like for you guys?
Oh, so for you, it's like a chain reaction.
It's a chain reaction, yeah.
Oh.
But my spirit stays the same, I think.
What about you, Nathan?
For me, after retreat, there's like a 1 week period where like I give all glory to God, and I feel really like motivated to give thanks to the Lord. And after that, it goes down, and then like it's like adrenaline, like it's really high for one week, like it's going really good, and like I feel like nothing can stop me from praising the Lord. And then like I have a bad day, and then it always goes away. And then the next day, I like think about like, oh shoot, like what was this week for? And then I get demotivated because of that one day, and it keeps going down and down and down. And then I have to wait for next retreat to go back.
So you're gonna wait 6 months for it to go back?
I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah, so that's why. It's a bad
This is honesty. This is honesty. So you're waiting for.
Or like,
So-
I have to wait.
So you're coming waiting.
Or no, like it's like a up and down, like just ups and downs. But like retreat is like right here, and then like it goes down again, and then there's like good days and bad days, and like up and down, and then I go back to retreat and it goes up, and then it goes another big drop, like over and over again.
You know, I actually feel like First Kings is very similar to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
In the sense that like it is about the rise and the fall. It is about this cycle of like highs and lows. Like I think of like Solomon, who like started off low and then got really, really high,
And then he
became
went
the
back
king,
down.
became really famous, really wealthy, very wise, and then secured peace, and then like he like boom, 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 boom. And then after, I think the story of First Kings actually is really about after Solomon too. It's like a king comes, and then it, like that king sucks, and then it's like a new king comes, and then that guy sucks. Do you guys agree with that diagnosis?
Yes. I think like for me, it's more so like when you're at retreat, you feel like this rush because of like who you're surrounded by. You know, like you see all your friends are so like faithful in a way, and like that are so like passionate, and that kind of like makes me want to like make promises to God. Like I remember this clearly. I was talking to someone, and I was like, I'm going to do this, do this, do this. But then right after retreat, you kind of realize that like you don't have the dedication to do everything, and then I choose to give up.
So do you think it's about laziness, or do you think it's about like false motivation, or what do you think that really is about?
I don't know. I think for me, like I'm someone who's like very emotional. You know, I make decisions based on like how I'm feeling in that moment. Like if I was having a good day and Nathan asked me to go eat, I'll just be like, of course, you know, I'll pay for you.
Yeah.
But then if I was having a bad day, I'm not gonna do anything. So I think like for me, I really need to work on like becoming more logical and like really controlling myself, even though like I feel so happy in that moment. You know.
And so what was it like for you?
Yeah.
Because you went on 2 retreats last retreat.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I went to one. It was like 2 weeks before, and then I went to that one, and they were like down the street from each other.
Also.
Yeah, I went to a KCM retreat. And then I went to our retreat. I think, like Eric, also, when I was like in like youth group, I was pretty like emotionally based when I made those decisions. I think like the environment and the discipline, and like people like to call it like spiritual high.
Yeah.
Right? That spiritual high that you get when you're at retreat makes you make decisions, and when you come back, it's like you technically could.
Yeah.
Every decision that you made, you technically could like keep those promises that you made. But there's discipline that like you need in order to keep those promises. And I think now, like I'm at the point of my life where when I go to retreats, if I know I can't keep the promise, it sounds sort of bad. If I know I can't keep the promise, then I don't make the decision.
Oh, so.
But yeah, like I also know like the promises that I want to make in those moments, I should be making them.
Yeah.
Because those are all things that help me become better spiritually. Right?
So what do you think is like the difference between a college student retreat and a youth retreat?
Honestly, they're pretty similar.
Oh, really?
I think college students just tend to, like when we have small group discussions, I know we didn't have it at this last retreat, but I led a small group for the KCM retreat. And they have a lot of thoughts about like what they want to say, especially like my group of seniors. And so I led seniors in discussion and helped them like find like these things in their lives where that they were able to like identify with like the sermon or with the songs, and just sort of talk it out with them. I think with high schoolers, at least for me, it's different because I'm not in high school, so it's like, and the generations are different. It's harder for me to relate to you guys than it is to relate to college seniors. Okay?
Yeah.
And so I think in that aspect, it's definitely like different, but otherwise, yeah, really similar.
Yeah. So if the reason that people experience this like the spiritual low is because of the adrenaline they feel in the moment, why do you think like pastors, or like what makes you as a pastor like do those things like altar calls or like surrendering in that moment? You know, like what's like how are you feeling in that moment that makes you like, well, I have to say this, and you know.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think now that we are talking about it, like as I'm also planning my next retreat in June 6th to 8th, sign up. One of the things I am like trying to work out is how can we really have people come back from the retreat and let this and like ride out the high a little bit longer, because I do think like everybody crashes so fast and they don't start. The big thing is like the emotions are great. The problem is like you come back down and then you don't apply anything. You don't actually do anything, and so that's really the problem. So I actually, for this retreat, I set aside I think like an hour for people to plan how they're gonna implement this retreat for that exact reason. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'd also like to say that this whole idea that like when you're young, you're like more emotional, I think it's very true. And I think like if you are a youth or even college or even young adult, because we're still all really young, I don't think it's necessarily like something you should like beat yourself up over. Yeah. Because like if you are young and then like you're still new to faith. For example, I personally think that most people probably don't know every story in the Bible. Yeah. You probably don't even, after you probably read First Kings, you're probably still like, what is happening? And so like I don't think the youth or the young adult or us, like I don't think you guys should be burdened by like, oh, like I have to know everything, I have to be so disciplined, I have to be so perfect, because even like a question of like how can I stop being so lazy, I think it's like you're looking for this idea that like we should, if we just find discipline, I'll be a disciplined person forever. And if I just figure out this code of how not to be so emotional, then I will be a disciplined Christian that's good forever. And that's not true. Like, like, in life right now, you guys have like, I think we have problems like, I got a C on my test. Or, like for me, it's like, oh, I couldn't figure out this retreat part, or I didn't get the Airbnb that I wanted. But in like, as you get older, it's like, dang, my grandma just died. Yeah. Dang, my dog died. Something like, oh, this girl broke up with me. Like, there's like bigger issues that come, and those are like, you get more emotional. Those are bigger problems. So my point is to say like, if you are emotional and you take those, you ride the emotional wave, like ride it. I think you should ride it because there's a mixture of truth in there. And at the same time, you got to grow up just a little bit. I think that's the point. Like you got to grow up just a little bit, because if God is willing and you live a long life, I think you wanna go like this. rather than thinking that you have to go like this.
Yeah.
Right. So the rate of the projection of growth is more like ups and downs.
Oh, I actually relate to that. Like, I think a good point is like that you made was that when you ask for something and you get it, it's not enough, right? And that's something that I experienced like recently with like college decisions, where it's like when I get a school that like I will go to, the next minute I'm immediately thinking about, oh, what about the next school? You know, and like even if I got into my dream school that I thought I wanted to go to like last year, like even now when I see people getting into better schools, I kind of feel that like greed that's like, oh, I wish I got into better schools. And I basically concluded that like I will never be able to like be satisfied. And so like I should be working on like, I think we talked about this where I should be working on like enjoying everything in the moment,
right?
And instead of like, you know, like looking forward to things, or even like looking at others and like really being like comparing myself to them, you know. And yeah.
Okay, so I think what you're saying is that like by reaching too far, we actually never reach anywhere.
Yeah.
I think like if you're even, you know, I'm sorry, like I'm bringing the question of like how do I stop being lazy into it, but it is a question that somebody asked. And I think like if you're looking for an answer where you're like, how can I be super disciplined and an absolute monster, hyper productive, then you're looking too far. I think like you have to look just here right now and figure out how to be just as disciplined as you can here. But I would like to add like that core, the core of how you're going to solve that here is probably the same core over there. So for example, like in terms of faith, like we always want to be like Jesus, which is perfection. But for us to just work on our discipline of Christian faith here, you know, in June 9th, basically when we come back from retreat, all you have to, we've gotten so far. Like everybody that's listening to the podcast who is going to go to retreat, you guys too, all we need to think is June 9th. Yeah. Right? The day we come back from retreat, we know we're going to be physically tired. We know like Nathan's going to crash out. We know like things are going to happen because why? We've been there before. And so now the conversation has to be, so what are we going to do June 9th all the way to June like 16th in order to grow up a little bit? How can we not crash too hard this time? And I think if we can just talk about that, I think I would like to ask that. Nathan, like, what is your plan to not crash? I don't want to say crash out. I feel like it's different. How are you going to next retreat on June 9th when we come back, not crash from your emotional high?
Oh, wait, I just want to ask something real quick. I think like that's perfect. You know, like I feel like we just found out that it's because of like the adrenaline that you tend to like look too far into like what you want to be. So Nathan, what are you going to change so that
I got it.
Okay.
So as I've been thinking for a couple seconds, I realized that I can't act too emotionally, like especially on the last night. I don't know. The second night, right? Saturday night, like where everyone's praying and everyone like the Holy Spirit and everything, like everything's going crazy. I realized that during that moment, during prayer, I say the most wildest stuff. Like I make the most
what does that
crazy.
mean?
For example, like I pray to the Lord, like, oh, I'll read my Bible every day, and then like I'll give my life to you, like right here. And like a week later, I'm like, oh, no, I can't do this. So like basically, what I should do is like as Piki said, like we can't go from here to here. We have to. It's like an up and down journey. So instead of making those big promises that I know I can't keep, I could start small and like maybe make or not a promise, or maybe just maybe asking a prayer for help, not like a promise, a prayer. So I could ask him to help me on my journey, or like I could ask him to like reveal himself throughout my life, like sooner or later. So yeah, just not make any like crazy promises that I know I can't keep.
So what do you think is like one thing that you could work on, like small thing that you could work on?
Yeah, maybe not reading the Bible
every day, but like, what do you think?
Like once a week?
Yeah.
Nah, maybe like twice a week.
Twice a week.
Yeah.
So
or actually, yeah, twice a week.
So have you actually been reading Romans like every day, or like?
Oh yeah, I've been reading Romans every night. Yesterday I almost forgot, but I did it. Or because recently, I've been having a problem with sleeping. I don't know why. Like I just can't really like fall asleep because my mind is still awake. But I realized like once this is like, maybe I'm crazy, but like every night I've been reading one chapter. I've been going the past 6 days. I've been sleeping really well, and like.
Oh, because you've been reading.
Yeah, every chapter I read,
Uh-huh.
I've been sleeping really well.
Oh.
So one advice I'd like to just throw out there, and then you guys
Mhm.
can tell me what you think. I'm also thinking just top of my head, like
Mm.
I think if we shifted the task from something like I'm gonna read one chapter a day
Mm-hmm.
into something like I'm gonna try to hear what God is telling me in the book of Romans
Mm-hmm.
when I come back from retreat.
Ooh.
That changes our shift from task into like mission.
Yeah.
And I think like one is like daunting
Mhm.
and one is full of purpose. So
Yeah.
I think even the Bible reading plan is a little bit difficult for us because it's like, I gotta read 3
task.
chapters. It's a task.
Yeah. I have to add it to the Google Sheet.
I gotta add it to it. I gotta do another
Yeah.
thing. I gotta put with the pictures. But if you start thinking like, dang, what is Second Kings, right?
Mhm.
Now that we're gonna have a fresh start,
Yeah.
what is Second Kings really about? What is God gonna tell me? Like, what is the real story here that like I can really implement in my life?
Mhm.
And I think if you can do that, so maybe, what do you guys think?
Yeah, and that's actually a question that someone asked on A2D, and is
Oh.
how can I stop procrastinating?
Mm.
So we have the answer for a Bible reading plan, but what do you guys think is the answer to like really keeping up with schoolwork, or like really keeping up with like all the busy plans in your life? How could you stop procrastinating?
I think it's so this is something that KCM, like STSM, which is like our missions program, likes to say, is that it's not a have to, it's a get to. Right?
Oh.
It's something you have to do, but at the same time, it's a blessing. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a privilege that we are able to do homework, that we are able to go to school, that we are able to work.
Mhm.
And when you think of it as a have to, of course you're gonna get tired.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Because then it's like, I have to go to do this. I have to and then you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Eventually you don't want to. If it's a get to, when you get that perspective shift, that perspective change, it no longer becomes something that's necessary,
Yeah.
right? All of a sudden, then it's not, I don't want to do it because I'm tired. You get to do it, so you get excited to do it. Right? And obviously, school and stuff, it's still not fun.
Yeah.
But for me, what helped a lot was it's not, because I was a really big procrastinator, college, high school, all the time. Right? I got in trouble for
me
it
too.
a lot, right?
Yeah.
But what helped me learn in college, which is when my perspective changed, was that this is also something I discovered recently. I'm doing a group project class with someone with university from Africa, Namibia.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And one thing that they were saying was the class that they were taking, that they were collaborating with us, you needed to pass to graduate. Right? It's part of the necessary requirements. And it sort of opened my perspective on there's so many people out there who aren't as blessed as us, who aren't as privileged as us, that they get to do these things whenever and however they want.
Yeah.
Right? And so shouldn't we be taking full advantage of that?
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't we be trying our best as students, as workers, employees? These are all things that God's has blessed us with and has told us to do. Right?
Yeah.
God right now is telling you to be a high school student, right?
Mhm.
So shouldn't we do our best to obey in that calling, and then go forward and do our best to glorify Him in that calling?
Well, I think that's perfect. So for whoever asked that question, your answer is really to really reflect on your privileges almost, and really just know that you're blessed, and these things that you get to do are blessings, so that you will be motivated to do that even more. And with that, that's the end of our session. Thank you guys for watching, if you watched to the end, and I hope God blesses you, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.